Jack Davidson stared through the viewport as the diplomatic vessel Endeavour approached the massive Xinthari mothership. After decades of searching for intelligent life, humanity had finally made contact 6 months ago. Now, as Earth's leading xenolinguist, Jack had the honor, and terror, of being part of the first face-to-face meeting. "Final approach in 2 minutes, Captain Reyes announced over the comm. Davidson, you ready with those translation algorithms?" Jack tapped the neural interface at his temple. "As ready as I'll ever be. The language models should adapt in real time, but there's always room for misinterpretation." The shuttle docked with a metallic clunk. Jack smoothed his dress uniform and joined the 5 other delegates in the airlock. His heart pounded against his ribs as the door hissed open. The Xinthari reception chamber stunned him into silence. Crystalline structures spiraled overhead, bathing everything in prismatic light. A dozen Xinthari stood waiting, their iridescent skin shifting colors like living opals. They were humanoid but taller, with elongated limbs and feathery crests where hair would be on humans. "Remember," whispered Commander Patel beside him, "we follow protocol exactly. No sudden movements, no direct eye contact with royalty." Jack nodded, his eyes drawn to the central figure on a hovering platform. Princess Vereen of the Xinthari, daughter of the Supreme Sovereign, radiated an otherworldly elegance. Her crest shimmered with blues and purples, and delicate patterns adorned her silvery skin. An elder Xinthari stepped forward. "Welcome, Earth beings. I am High Counselor Thrix. Her Royal Highness Princess Vereen grants you audience." Jack's neural interface translated the musical clicks and trills perfectly. He could do this. Humanity was counting on him. The Earth delegation approached as rehearsed, heads slightly bowed. Commander Patel presented their formal greetings and gifts. The princess responded with graceful gestures that Jack's interface translated as diplomatic pleasantries. Then it was Jack's turn to demonstrate the translation technology. He stepped forward, reciting the carefully prepared speech about peaceful cooperation and cultural exchange. Princess Vereen tilted her head, her silver eyes studying him intently. When he finished, she spoke directly to him in her melodic language. "Her Highness asks if you would share knowledge of your world's artistic expressions," the interface translated. Jack smiled, relieved at the simple request. "We have many art forms, Your Highness. Music, dance, poetry." As he spoke, he noticed her crest changing to a bright pink. Was that interest? Amusement? Encouraged, Jack decided to demonstrate. He hummed a few bars of an old Earth folk song, then followed with a snippet of poetry about stars and distant worlds. The chamber fell silent. Every Xinthari froze, their skin colors shifting to stark white. Princess Vereen's crest flared brilliant crimson. High Counselor Thrix stepped between them, mandibles clicking rapidly. Jack's interface struggled to keep up. "You dare, traditional, sacred, binding. What's happening?" Commander Patel hissed. "I don't know," Jack whispered back. "The translation's breaking down." Princess Vereen floated forward, her eyes locked on Jack's. She spoke one sentence that translated clearly, "I accept your proposal." The Xinthari erupted in a cacophony of sounds. Some seemed outraged, others excited. Jack's stomach dropped as the interface finally caught up to what was happening. He had accidentally performed the Xinthari royal courtship ritual. The specific combination of tones and words he'd used, completely innocent in human terms, had a very different meaning here. And Princess Vereen had just accepted. "Davidson," Commander Patel's voice was deadly calm, "what did you just do?" Jack swallowed hard as the Xinthari approached with what appeared to be ceremonial robes. I just got engaged to an alien princess." The diplomatic quarters aboard the Xinthari mothership felt more like a luxurious prison to Jack. 3 days had passed since his accidental proposal, and Earth Command was still negotiating his release. They're calling it a sacred cultural misunderstanding, Commander Patel explained during their secure video call. The Zinthari Royal Council claims breaking off the engagement would constitute a grave insult to their princess. Jack ran his hands through his disheveled hair. Can't we just explain I didn't know what I was doing? We tried. Apparently, ignorance of their customs doesn't invalidate the ritual. The Supreme Sovereign is taking this very seriously. So I'm what, royal hostage material now? More like a reluctant bridegroom, Patel said grimly. Our diplomats are working around the clock, but the Zinthari are stubborn. A chime at his door interrupted them. Someone's here, Jack whispered. Remember, whatever happens, you represent humanity. Don't make things worse. The door slid open to reveal Thrix, flanked by Zinthari attendants carrying elaborate garments that shimmered with embedded gemstones. The princess requests your presence for the first bonding ceremony, Thrix announced. Jack's translator interface rendered the words clearly, but their meaning remained opaque. What exactly is a bonding ceremony? The formal recognition of your spiritual compatibility, Thrix explained as though it were obvious. It is the first of 7 rituals before the final union. Jack was escorted through crystalline corridors to a circular chamber where Princess Vereen waited. Her silvery skin glowed in the soft light, and her eyes fixed on him with unsettling intensity. Leave us, she commanded her attendants, who quickly withdrew. When they were alone, her formal posture relaxed. You're frightened, she said, her voice gentler than he'd heard before. Confused might be more accurate, Your Highness. She circled him slowly. Your translation device works well now. My scientists enhanced its cultural context matrix. Then you understand I had no idea what I was doing? Of course. A sound like wind chimes escaped her, laughter, Jack realized. Did you think I believed a human deliberately initiated our sacred bonding ritual? Jack felt a rush of relief. So we can call this off. Her crest darkened. Not so simple. The ritual was witnessed by the council. In the eyes of our people, we are bound. But that's politics, she finished. My father's reign is ending. There are factions who oppose my succession. If I reject you now, my enemies will claim weakness, indecision. Jack's mind raced. And if you proceed with this, bonding? I secure my position and forge the first royal alliance with humans. A strategic advantage. So I'm just a political pawn? Vereen's skin rippled with changing patterns. As am I, Jack Davidson. Neither of us chose this path, but here we stand. She approached, towering over him. You have a choice. Participate in the ceremonies while your diplomats negotiate terms, or refuse and risk severing relations between our species. That's not much of a choice. Few choices are, in matters of state. Her eyes softened. If it helps, I find you fascinating. Your species is young but remarkably adaptive. Before Jack could respond, attendants returned with ceremonial attire. As they dressed him in robes that felt like liquid metal against his skin, Vereen explained the ceremony. We will share memories through the empathic crystal. It allows a glimpse into each other's minds, nothing invasive, merely surface emotions and significant life moments. That sounds intimate. It is the foundation of understanding between bonded pairs. A hint of vulnerability crossed her features. I've never shared with an off-worlder before. The ceremony began with Zinthari officials and Earth diplomats watching anxiously as Jack and Vereen placed their hands on a crystalline orb. Immediately, Jack felt a strange connection forming, like tendrils of thought reaching across the void between their minds. Suddenly, he was experiencing flashes of Vereen's life, her rigorous royal training, the weight of expectations, moments of solitude among the stars. In turn, he felt her experiencing his childhood in rural Montana, his fascination with languages, his dreams of distant worlds. When they separated, something had changed between them. Understanding, perhaps. Or the beginning of something neither had anticipated. Jack stood before the Zinthri Royal Council, struggling to follow their rapid debate. 2 weeks into this diplomatic crisis, he'd learned enough of their language to catch fragments without his translator. The human cannot possibly complete the trial of elemental harmony, argued an elder counselor, her crest flaring indignantly. His physiology isn't compatible. Exceptions must be made, countered another. The princess has chosen. Princess Vereen entered, silencing the chamber. Since their first mind-sharing, Jack had glimpsed beneath her royal facade. She was brilliant, determined, and surprisingly humorous when away from court politics. The human will attempt a modified trial, she announced. I have designed alternatives that honor our traditions while acknowledging biological differences. Jack bowed awkwardly as she approached. What exactly am I attempting? Traditionally, royal consorts prove worthiness through trials of our 4 elements. You'll face challenges of air, water, crystal, and resonance. Back on the Endeavour, Earth's diplomatic team was in crisis mode. They're making him perform alien rituals now. Admiral Ortega fumed over the secure channel. This has gone too far. Lieutenant Ravi, their cultural specialist, studied the Zinthri documents. Actually, this could work in our favor. These trials are designed to be challenging but achievable. If Jack completes them, he gains status among their nobility. And if he fails? Then rejection becomes possible without insult, Ravi explained. It's an honorable exit strategy. Jack's first trial began at dawn. Standing on a floating platform high above the Zinthri capital, he faced winds that threatened to hurl him into the abyss. Control your breathing, Vereen instructed. Match it to the wind's rhythm. Jack tried, focusing on the techniques she'd taught him in secret. Gradually, the wind seemed to respond, swirling around rather than against him. The water trial required diving into their sacred pools, retrieving crystal fragments that resonated with his essence. The crystal trial tested his mind, requiring him to solve intricate puzzles that shifted in real time. By the 3rd trial, Jack was exhausted but determined. He sensed something beyond politics was unfolding. The way Vereen watched him, her skin glimmering with colors he was learning to read, concern, admiration, perhaps something deeper. The final trial came without warning. Jack was summoned to a chamber where Vereen waited alone. The resonance trial is the most important, she explained, activating a device that filled the room with harmonic tones. Our species communicates on frequencies beyond words. You must find my resonance pattern in this chaos. Jack listened, recalling their shared memories. Closing his eyes, he focused on the emotional imprint she'd left in his mind. Slowly, he began humming a counter-melody, following instinct rather than training. The discordant sounds gradually harmonized around his voice. When he opened his eyes, Vereen's crest had turned a brilliant gold, a color he'd never seen before. You've succeeded beyond expectation, she whispered. Few of my own people could have found my true frequency so precisely. Later, Jack met with Commander Patel in his quarters. The council is impressed, Patel admitted. You've bought us negotiating leverage. I think there's more happening than politics, Jack said. The princess, Vereen, I'm starting to understand her world. Careful, Davidson. Don't forget why you're here. Jack nodded, but his thoughts remained with Vereen and the strange connection growing between them, one that transcended species, politics, and the vast emptiness of space that had once separated their worlds. Jack discovered Princess Vereen in the Royal Observatory, her silhouette outlined against the backdrop of swirling nebulae displayed on the massive dome overhead. On my world, we have folktales about stars being distant kingdoms, Jack said, joining her. I never imagined I'd find out how right we were. Vereen's crest rippled with subtle blues. Your Earth appears as merely a faint point from here, yet it has produced beings of remarkable resilience. Their conversations had grown more personal since the trials. Jack found himself sharing stories of Earth while Vereen revealed glimpses of her life as heir to the Zinthari throne. The Supreme Council has set the final ceremony for 3 cycles hence, she informed him, her tone carefully neutral. That soon? Have our diplomats made any progress? They've proposed a treaty instead of marriage, a formal alliance between our worlds. Her skin darkened slightly. It would allow you to return home with honor. Jack should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt strangely conflicted. Is that what you want? What I want has rarely mattered, Vereen replied. I was born to serve my people's interests. And what are their interests in this case? Technology exchange. Protection from the Dreth Collective. Access to Earth's artistic and cultural wealth. She paused. But perhaps there are personal interests as well. Before Jack could respond, an alarm blared throughout the ship. Security forces rushed past them as announcements echoed in Zinthari. What's happening? Jack asked. A Dreth incursion. They've breached our outer defenses. Vereen's eyes widened. They're targeting this sector, they must know about our diplomatic exchange. The ship rocked violently. Jack instinctively pulled Vereen away from the viewport as it cracked under pressure. They fled down corridors now bathed in emergency lighting. We need to reach the secure chambers, Vereen said as they navigated through panicked crowds. A massive explosion separated them from her guards. Debris blocked their path forward. This way, Jack pulled her toward an access tunnel he'd discovered during his explorations. It connects to the lower decks. As they crawled through maintenance passages, Jack realized Vereen was injured, silvery fluid seeping from a gash in her arm. It's nothing, she insisted, but her crest had paled alarmingly. They emerged near the shuttle bay where chaos reigned. The Dreth, insectoid raiders known throughout the galaxy, were attempting to board. If they capture you, they'll demand technological ransoms from your father, Jack realized. We need to get you off this level. Using his limited knowledge of Zinthari systems, Jack sealed several bulkheads, buying them precious time. Together they made their way to a communication station where Vereen contacted her forces. Help is coming, she said weakly, her injury clearly worse than she'd admitted. Jack tore fabric from his uniform, creating a makeshift bandage. Hold on. I didn't accidentally propose to you just to lose you to space pirates. A ghost of a smile crossed her features. Is that what we are to each other now? An accident? Their eyes met in the dim emergency lighting. I don't think it's an accident anymore, Jack admitted. The Zinthari security forces arrived moments later, driving back the Dreth attackers. In the aftermath, as Vereen received medical attention, her father the Supreme Sovereign summoned Jack. You protected my daughter when her guards could not, the imposing ruler stated. Perhaps there is more to humans than we first believed. Jack bowed respectfully. Perhaps there's more to all of us than our first impressions suggest, Your Majesty. The Zinthari Grand Assembly Hall bustled with activity. 1 month after the Dreth attack, representatives from both species gathered for what the media called the interstellar wedding of the century, though it had evolved into something quite different. Jack adjusted his ceremonial attire, a fusion of human formal wear and Zinthari royal regalia. Commander Patel approached with a rare smile. Ready to make history, Davidson? As ready as anyone can be to sign an interspecies alliance treaty while technically engaged to royalty. Their solution had been elegant, transform the marriage ceremony into a diplomatic union. Jack would become Earth's first ambassador to the Zinthari Empire, with special status as the princess's honored companion, a position without precedent that satisfied both cultural requirements and practical realities. Vereen entered, resplendent in ceremonial armor rather than traditional bonding attire. The scar on her arm, a reminder of their escape, she displayed proudly, a symbol of their shared trial. "My father has accepted the final terms," she said as they walked together toward the central platform. "Your people will receive Xinthari FTL technology. Mine will gain protection by Earth's alliance network against the Dreth." "And us?" Jack asked quietly. Varine's crest shimmered with colors he'd learned meant affection. "We have time to discover what that means. I will visit Earth as official envoy. You will remain here as ambassador. A long-distance relationship across interstellar space. Quite the modern arrangement." The ceremony began with the formal treaty signing, followed by a simplified version of the Xinthari bonding ritual. When Jack and Varine placed their hands on the empathic crystal one final time, the connection felt stronger, more natural. In that shared mental space, beyond words and cultural barriers, they found understanding. Not the fairy tale ending of human stories, nor the predetermined fate of Xinthari tradition, but something new, a bridge between worlds, built one careful step at a time. The Supreme Sovereign's voice echoed through the hall. "Today marks not just an alliance between governments, but a connection between peoples. Different in form, yet alike in spirit." Jack thought of that night in a dingy bar on Earth when he'd wished for adventure among the stars. Sometimes, the universe had a strange sense of humor and timing. As the ceremony concluded, Jack and Varine faced the assembled dignitaries not as reluctant participants in a diplomatic crisis, but as architects of a new future, one where an accidental insult had transformed into humanity's greatest opportunity.